Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Daily Jace live show. What a week it's been. Pandemics, politics, problems. It's the year everyone's had a bumpy ride on. It's my pleasure to bring onto the show someone who set up a project that was called the Great Dunedin Brainstorm. That's where we actually met. I was interested to meet everyone in the business community down here, and he was helping to organise and facilitate it. And he's also the managing director of Kiwa Digital, and also helped Les Mills go international when they were getting off the ground back in the day. So welcome to the stage, Steven Renata. How are you, my bro?
Kia ora, ngā mihi ki a koutou, everybody. Nice to be here.
Yeah, good to have you on. For everyone who doesn't know your story and your journey, can you give the quick five of what you're all about, how you came to be here, and I guess your business journey along the way?
In 60 seconds or less. Born 66, born in Kawakau, actually, far north, and that's the Māori roots, the Ngāpuhi side. But I actually grew up in a little town called Milton, just south of Dunedin, another epicentre in the country most people don't know about. And just a regular kid, country town, ended up coming through to Dunedin to do my tertiary studies at Otago University. I was rugby mad, wanted to play for the All Blacks type stuff. Played New Zealand secondary schools, got that far. And then once I came out of university with a master's course, I then migrated up to Auckland. Along the way, I got into Les Mills group fitness, which was called aerobics back in the day. Yes, there was lycra and all that funny stuff. And, I was fortunate enough to be around the time, we're sort of talking late 80s, early 90s, when this program called Pump started, which was barbell lightweight to music. And, started this funny little idea, and it just took off like you can't believe. And so I was the guy that took Pump, Body Pump as it's known, around the world for 20 years. So, having come out of Dunedin, up in Auckland, I was doing some lecturing at what was called AIT then. It's now AUT in Māori tourism. So I sort of had a bit of a marketing type background. But, my hobby and my passion was sort of in the fitness scene. I did a bit of triathlon, played rugby, and suddenly I was doing this group fitness stuff that really started to become really professional. So I ended up being in Australia on a 3-month tour to go around Australia on the weekends, introducing fitness clubs to this Les Mills program. And of course, it was the classic, Kiwi in Australia getting the shit kicked out of him. The Aussies were like, how dare someone from New Zealand come to our country and tell us about fitness? It was really like,
yeah, big brother type rivalry going on there.
And to be fair, the only thing that sort of helped us sneak through was, one, we had the barbells when everyone else was doing aerobics, so the resistance. And myself and a few others that were involved, I just come off doing the Ironman. So I was fit. Yeah. And so we were able to sort of, beat them on physical fitness and the fact we had something quite new. Anyway, the Aussies, adopted it pretty quick, and I think they started calling it theirs, just like they do pavlova. And suddenly I'm on a plane to Europe with one or two others, and what ended up being a 3-month trip to Australia became a 7-year trip around the world.
So what years were they?
We went to Aussie in sort of 95, 96, and then we hit Europe sort of around 97, 98. And then about 99, 2000, the US got involved, and many, many other countries, and then things just started to crank up. And Les Mills is in over 100 countries now. It's a $100 million revenue recurring every year. A couple 100,000 instructors teaching their classes, and I think 20,000 or so clubs licensed. So that was I was one of the founding directors of the company. So I wasn't just an employee, I was a shareholder.
Yeah,
so
it was a big time.
It was a pretty big chunk of life, very exciting opportunity to get. A lot of hard work, harder than people would think. And then I sort of finished up my last posting because I was living all around the world. Sort of as we opened up markets, I would be one of the first to come in to help open up the market, training instructors, helping with the business, blah, blah, blah. And Then along came marriage and a small mini-me called Grace, and it was leading up to her going to school. We were in San Francisco. She was born overseas, in Holland, actually. And then we decided to come back just prior to her going to school. My wife's from West Auckland in Kumeu. So we came back and, did the sort of, the nesting thing. And at that point, it was sort of time for me to move on to my own project. I'd been with Les Mills Walker for, half my life. So I got out of that and got into media, digital publishing, and I bought a big chunk of a company called Kiwa Digital. So I've been doing that for the last 5 or 6 years. Kiwa Digital does two things. It licenses software that helps with dubbing, television and video content. So a lot of Netflix shows that are dubbed into other languages probably have used our software called VoiceQ. And then the other part we do is we create native digital apps that are kind of got an educational language aspect to them. So we do a lot of work here in New Zealand with those. And then just, as if I had enough time on my hands, I also started a business with my sister in Dunedin called Innovate HQ, which is a Flash co-working space.
Yeah, I've been there actually. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So probably it was more than 60 seconds. A lot going on in 54 years. Nice. And then the cool part where I met you was through my sister's connection with the community, DCC and everything, and my, pretty broad international and national business background. We were asked to help facilitate the workshop, the Great Dunedin Brainstorm, which is around trying to get ideas from the community that could help Dunedin move forward, whether it's a social cohesion level, mental, health, right through to business ideas, so forth. And it was bloody awesome. It was nice to come home after all these years and, be part of the crew of trying to help the community and what's been one of the toughest years for a lot of people, COVID-19. Wow, 2020, we're going to remember that. So felt privileged to be back, really humbled, and I would look forward to seeing some of the ideas that go forward. We had, I think, 11 ideas went through on the day, and I think what I heard yesterday was maybe 5 or 6 are actually going to move through to the next step. So that'll be cool.
Awesome. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster for everyone. What's been the biggest challenge for you over the last 6 months?
Without trying to sound like a broken record, I think the isolation that lockdown 4, having to stay pretty much within your home, apart from essentials, for a prolonged period, that took quite a bit of getting used to. I work remotely anyway, so that's not a big deal to work remotely. But to have to stay pretty much within your section, that was once you get through sort of like 10 days in, I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. So it was tough. We did a lot of exercise. I'm fortunate I got a big property. I got a gym in my garage, and we made a bubble with my local neighbours. So we had a little bit of, a few more people.
Interaction. Yeah.
Bit of interaction. So I thought that was challenging. Probably the other thing I found interesting was, when's this thing ever going to end?
Yeah.
And we don't know. Even we've sort of gone in and out, and we're obviously in a good place today. But, who would have thought 2 weeks ago that we would have been in lockdown 3 in Auckland? I mean, seriously? So just that kind of unknown of just how long is this thing going to stick around is a little bit concerning. But I also think with COVID, you almost get sick of hearing the thing. There's also been a lot of things coming out of it. When there's nothing like a crisis to force change in behaviour.
Yes.
So I've experienced, and hopefully I've shared a bit myself, some incredible moments of kindness that I know wouldn't have happened unless it was COVID, but people got pushed into the corner and suddenly they sort of, they see you on the street and say hello to you. You walk past them for 2 years, never said a word. Suddenly, oh, g'day, how are you? I'm like, wow, it took that. And appreciation of basic things in life that you take for granted when they're taken away, you realise just how privileged you are.
For sure. Especially in New Zealand, we can look overseas and see the carnage that this thing has caused. And I think New Zealanders have banded together pretty well. There's been a lot of talk whether the strategy was right or not, hard and early, whether we should have done that, what the different paths could have been, and whether it's right. And I suppose this election is pretty important to determine what the further steps after November or October will be. So I definitely agree. It's funky to see how everyone's banded together, and I like how people have used this crisis to band together. It's a huge thing in New Zealand society, I think. Rather than becoming polarized, it's sort of galvanized us together. So then once the crisis hit back in May, what was your first thoughts with business and also steps moving forward when everything hit the fan?
I think everybody probably has a slightly different approach. First thing for me was, where is my respective members of my whānau, whether that's in Australia, Dunedin, whatever, how are they? And, what's their bubble, what's going on there, and can we communicate freely? So that was the first thing. Second thing, and this happened, seconds, like a split second later, for my daughter Grace, how were we going to handle school? What did that really entail? And that was really a pretty interesting experience, that first few days of online schooling, because she's an only child, and just seeing, is this actually going to work at all? I was surprised how well it went. I think there's still some learning that can be better, but that was probably the top of mine. Is all right, how do we manage the confinement, maintain some level of sanity? My work went through the roof. So we're a technology business, so we actually benefited from COVID, and I don't say that lightly. I was hiring, during COVID, which was awesome. While companies were firing thousands of people, we were actually hiring people, which is a nice thing to do, just give people a job and security. So it was just sort of quick, like, okay, this is going on. It's all in. There's no sort of in-betweens. And how do we commit to different processes to make sure we can communicate? And beyond the sort of the business, meeting stuff, was just trying to make a little bit of extra effort to check in, like, how are people really feeling? Because, you can be on a screen and you got all the technology and you're talking, you're doing your work, but to get a sense of people's anxiety or loneliness, just some basic fundamental stuff that perhaps in a non-working environment you take for granted, or it just moves quite quickly. Isolation is one of the most dangerous things for people with depression. So just being more mindful of doing the business, but checking in first, how you doing? How you feeling? Good day, bad day. You need an extra one-on-one meeting, or, do you want to just drop this meeting here and go do something? Because a lot of people almost over-zoomed. The zooming so much they're like, just getting people used to that new normal. Sorry about that. What are you there?
All good.
Did I turn my video off by mistake?
No dramas. We can still hear you.
Yeah. That was the focus. Is well-being. Well-being, business was there for sure, but well-being of whānau and well-being of staff.
Yeah. And I think it's especially important in New Zealand, where our mental health statistics aren't the best. We've got it's one of the highest youth suicide rates in the world. It's nothing to hide behind. We've got to try and put the problem to the forefront and tackle the issue. And I think you're right. It's a big deal. And out of this crisis, that's one that will come to the forefront if it hasn't already in the next months to come. I know you're an ideas guy. If you were, do you think that one, New Zealand has done well in our strategy, and two, what do you think next steps after October should be, after the election, despite who gets in government? What would you do if you were at the helm?
Look, I'm definitely sitting right over the side of, we led by the leadership, did an incredible job. I have no even qualms about, did we go too late to it? Okay, you could have gone a little, maybe a couple of weeks early, but we went early enough and we put the protocols in place. Everybody went in for it. Whether it was reluctant or not, it was the team of 5 million type thing. And at the end of the day, the data tells us how well we did. Whether we want to say we did good or whatever, just look at the numbers. It's clear. And so, as a nation, we should be really proud of that. Any of these sort of things, when you are up against a major crisis and you're requiring lots of people and lots of variables to come together to make a success, that's incredibly tough. Like, there are only certain countries that can pull it off, and usually there's two things. One, they're really small, or two, they've got an incredibly autocratic government. Like in Singapore, when they say lockdown and step right, the whole population goes boom.
Yeah.
Because it's the culture there, right? We'd probably say it's almost over the top. The Chinese are the same. But in terms of getting a result, you look at a democracy like the States, where it's freedom of speech and everybody can carry a gun, they're dying because they can't get everybody to move in the same direction on matters of, utmost importance for the country. So, when you get into a really tough situation, that's, for me, it's like you need strict rules, not too many, and the non-negotiable, because the moment you deviate just a couple, it fucks it up for everybody else,
Yeah.
And this is life and death stuff. This isn't just getting sick. So I think New Zealand, awesome leadership, well done. I know Jacinda Ardern's taken a lot of the accolades for it, but you got to remember there's a whole government behind her, and she's a great spokesperson for the government. She has great values. But I think the whole government, that's the collective government, not just the Labour Party. They did a good job. We're going to have to work to get out. The economy is taking a hit, and it's going to get worse. But again, when you're trying to take money from the tax pool and give it to people that need it right now, really quickly, it's the future generations are going to have to pay for that. But what was the choice? There was no choice. So
yeah, for sure.
And so I think that we're on track in terms of the future. I sort of tend to be a bit apolitical. It's more about what is the right thing for the country to do. Is until there is a vaccine or this thing disappears off the planet, which I don't see anytime soon, it's border control which really defines our success, because we're a little bubble, right? And if we just do what we're doing, we can just have a pretty normal life. It's the COVID coming in from offshore. To me, you just got to trickle down on it. People moaning about 2 weeks isolation. I don't care. If it's 3 weeks, whatever it is going to keep it out, that's what will be done. I think just like an obsession around border control at every single part of that process, going in and going out, that will save us so much drama for the next 1 to 2 years while the other countries are struggling. I mean, what you're going to see around the world for the big countries, and you see it now, is spikes. Up and down. This is exhausting. The first spike just about kills the country, but when you come down and you go back again, it's incredibly exhausting on the community. So I reckon there'll be probably about half a dozen countries around the world. We'll be one of them that will be the utopia bubbles where people want to be.
The gold standard.
Yeah. And so I think there could be some opportunities for New Zealand to be able to bring certain people in. Sometimes that might be a high net worth individual that also brings jobs and economies and stuff or intellect to the country, and I think that should be looked at. I sit on the UTech MIT board, and so with a lot of the tertiary institutions around the country, somewhere around 10 to 20% of the students and or revenue is international. So we need
massive.
How can we bring these folks in from overseas safely so they have a great time, but also that there's no infection being passed on from them to the New Zealand community. Now, that's just a process. If you get that process right, you become the country for tertiary education.
You probably have a better understanding than I do of it. What's the biggest roadblock at the moment to bring those students and high net worth individuals in?
It's a combination. So one is you've got to have the process requires facilities. So you get off a plane, you got your mask on, and then you've got to go through the 2 meter separation stuff, and then you've got to go to different points, get tested. Then you've got to go to a hotel or something. So you've got to have all those facilities, which is a bit like a hospital, to be fair. A hospital that can accommodate hundreds, possibly thousands of people streaming off airplanes from God knows where, and then putting them through a process and then putting them into isolation for 2 weeks. And then at the end of that period, fingers crossed, they can enter community. But we've already seen a guy who did the 2-week quarantine, and just luckily he got a little bit sick a day or two after it and put himself back in and got checked, and he'd actually got it again. So what's happening with COVID is there's new things about COVID coming out that we didn't know about even 6 months ago. That one, kids can get COVID. COVID can hit you, you can recover, and it can come again, even though you've tested negative. So it's like, whoa, is there ever a solution here? So I think
it's so unpredictable.
Yeah, lots of detail around the process of bringing people in, facilities, the things you got to do, what you can't do, touch, all that stuff. And that takes money and it takes effort. But if you can figure it out, because everyone else in the world's trying to do the same thing. So suddenly, because most are getting it wrong, or people are scared to go to certain countries because of the high levels, if you can position yourself as super tight, probably like Switzerland will be doing it because the Swiss do everything perfectly, right? You become the go-to place.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big opportunity, but we've got to really focus on how do we do this better than anyone else.
Get the processes tight, and then we can reimagine New Zealand and how we want it to look like.
It's no different than saying to the All Blacks, how will you win the last game of the next World Cup? Well, that starts now, not in the game. It starts now. So it's that level of sort of what's the big picture here? What's the big game? What are the things we're going to have to do and put in place to get to that level of success? And it's not going to be easy, but if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Exactly. But I think New Zealand, like you said, has done pretty well up to this point, considering all factors, how complex the situation is, how we can take care of our people as well as try and rebuild the economy. It's a tough situation.
Who would have thought a little wee country like us would have thought, let's put some cyclists on a boat and win this thing called the America's Cup? I mean, who would have thought that?
Yeah.
It's that kind of level of innovation, and people say it can't be done, and so that's just the red rag to a bull to most Kiwis. And then it's like if you do it that way, it can't be done, but if you just go like that, it can. But do you know what that is? It's that sort of thing. It's just getting out of the box, really just put yourself under incredible pressure to think about what could be done and what's another way of doing it. And even though it might be hard, you get this. And that's where you get the magic, is when you get out of status quo comfort level, which is what I call polishing the silver. So we're doing some stuff now. Let's polish it and make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
No, that's not transformational. And you need transformational thinking and leadership to get to that, iconic moment of, oh my goodness, look at that. And that's effort.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast by Peter Beck the other day, and he was saying that everyone thinks you're crazy until you do it, and then they think you're a thought leader and visionary. I think New Zealand should hit the top. We should be dreaming big. We're the gold standard at the moment. We should be being at the forefront of everything. It's we need people to dream big and hit way above their weight. It's a good thing, but tall poppy syndrome. It's taking us down. It's a huge
25 years ago, a lot of people said to me, 10,000 gyms doing body pump around the world? Never.
Yeah.
How'd that turn out?
Yeah, it's in our school system. It's in social circles, families, whatever. We just need to change our thinking. New Zealand's a great place. We need to really bump the level up. It's a massive thing in this country.
The other thing in that kind of thinking innovation piece, and again, this is a mindset thing, is whenever you're trying to solve a challenging problem with some innovative solution, is you need to go hard, get focused, bring in, collaborate, all of that stuff. But also another golden rule in there is it's okay to not get it right the first one. And so from my company's perspective, we talk about iteration versus success and failure. So it's 1.0, 2.0, 2.7, 2.8, 2.9, 3.0. Is 3.0 better than 1.0? Hell yeah. But you got to get off the ground. And so if there's some sort of technology involved in the solutions, which there are for most things today, my biggest advice, just get something out there. Get going, get started. Because once you got the first prototype going and you got enough of a sample, the feedback process and iteration process to get it done and get it back out is actually what makes it successful. So it's less about perfection. It's more about get going and polish really quick. And then suddenly, you're at Series 5.0 in the space of, a month or 2 months. And it's amazing. But if you hadn't started with 1, you would have never got 5.
Yeah.
Iterative innovation to me is the new buzzword. Innovation can be hit and miss. Iterative innovation means we're always going forward. If it's a little one or a big one or a medium-sized one, we just iterate. I think what that does, it loosens up people because people get scared of failure, or people they're working with put the fear of God of them around failure, instead of talking about iterate, go faster and iterate, get the feedback to iterate. And so when people feel free and they're less fearful, they become more curious. And when you got curiosity, this is when you have the moment of opportunity. If you don't have curiosity, you're here and you're scared. So you go slower because you don't want to make mistakes. You've got to just loosen that up.
Give people the freedom to fail and innovate and explore, If you had crystal ball, last question, because I know time is tight. If you had crystal ball and think of what New Zealand will look like 5 to 10 years from now, post-COVID or in a COVID world, what do you think we'll be doing well?
I think we'll be maybe 5.5 to 6 million population country. I think we could be some of the leaders in education and health. And domestic tourism. I think you're going to see a spike in domestic tourism. I've got a lot of friends that are traveling around New Zealand now going, oh my God, I didn't realize New Zealand was so nice.
Those Aucklanders, eh?
Yeah.
Go overseas and don't travel the country.
I found it needed. It's like, so I think, just traveling your own country, that's what sparks off stuff like, wow, it's all right here. So I think, leading in education, leading in health, technology, leading in tourism, domestic tourism, hopefully leading in some sort of process around how to manage pandemics. We should strive to be a leader in that space. I would like to think we've got another female prime minister in the next 10 years, apart from Jacinda, to make sure it's not a one-off. Well, it's not a one-off because we had Helen Clark. And, the diversity of New Zealand is like just cranking. And here in Auckland, in the next 4 or 5 years, 30% of the population will either be Māori, Pacific, or Asian. 30, wow. Right? That's how. And Asia is a lot of ethnicities as well. So we've got such a big shift going on in the country, that diversity, cultural level, population level. So good chance to see new things come through. I still think New Zealand is still maturing its identity of itself. We were for many years a Commonwealth country, right? We were part of the Commonwealth, a lot of connections to royalty and stuff, and that's cool. I don't have any dramas with the King and the Queen, but our real identity as New Zealanders starts from tangata whenua, Māori, and then everyone that arrived and who we are now as a nation, not a member of the Commonwealth. That's an add-on. It's like, no, this is who we are, which is quite different from the folks in Australia. We're a lot of similar, but we need to. And I think the more we embrace that and understand what it is to be a Kiwi, is where you get the gems. That's where the gold is. So I look forward to that. And I saw some.
Yeah, love it. That's important. I think go back to our roots. We've got awesome talent here, and we've also got talent Kiwis that have gone overseas who are coming back from this whole COVID pandemic. They're traveling back to the country. I've got a friend who's traveled back from Australia, so we're getting a lot of our people back, which is pretty cool as well.
That's one thing, Jace. And then I'll be looking forward to within 10 years the Jace TV show.
That's the one. I want to have New Zealand's top business leaders on the show. Have it go global so we can push out our expertise to the world. So I'll be there on the journey. So just to wrap up, I know time is tight. Where can people find you if they want to hit you up about anything and learn more?
Google's always pretty good. Steven Renata type thing. LinkedIn. I'm not hard to find. And I do make an effort for people that do reach out to me to respond within 24 hours always.
Cool.
So if you have
Awesome.
any questions or queries, if I can help, I'm more than happy to do that.
Steve, you're a champ. Thanks so much for coming on. It's really cool that I met you at the Great Dunedin Brainstorm. I had a lot of fun, and it's cool to see the innovation happening down here, down south, and hopefully some of those ideas can help rebuild the community and the economy, not just for Dunedin, but also for the country as a whole. So thanks for your efforts, and keep in touch. If you ever need anything, shout out.
Will do. Mā te wā. Kia ora.
See you, mate. Steven Renata, everyone. He's a pretty cool guy. He helped grow Les Mills International. You heard at the start, he started bringing those fitness classes back in the days into Australia, had a bit of hustle there, and there was a bit of push and shove between the Australians over there and them, because Australians, although they're our big brothers, they get pretty competitive with us, and then he took it over to Europe and America with the Les Mills team. So pretty cool to see. It's and now he's coming back. He's come back to New Zealand to help rebuild the economy back here and build businesses here. So Steven Renata, definitely one to watch, everyone. From my end, I just spent a week up in Auckland catching up with the Global Games crew. That was a lot of it was a lot of fun to see them, but we were actually meant to be running the New Zealand Junior Rugby Festival last weekend in Taupo, but because of COVID, we had to cancel. So everyone's feeling the effects of this thing. No community or organisation or individual is untouched. It's a challenging time for all. We touched on that point about mental health, and I think it's a really huge one because there are a lot of people that are struggling at the moment, struggling to come up with how they're going to sustain themselves, and that's a really scary place to be. I know that if the finances aren't sorted, then everything else in your life sort of falls apart. And I feel for all those New Zealanders that are in that position. It's tough. It's tough. They might have kids. They might have a mortgage to pay off. They might have business debt, whatever. Or maybe it's what Stephen brought up about loneliness. They might have been in isolation for a while and don't know how to reach out to people, or don't feel brave enough. It's a challenging time. New Zealand is doing its best. I'm really proud of what the country's achieved. With putting politics aside, I think we have put the people first. There might be a generational thing where people have to pay off the debt, but it's most important to take care of the people first and foremost, and then once the population is taken care of, then we can help rebuild everything from there. So it's really interesting just to see the different stories that are happening in the background. Everyone's got an insight into their own world and what's going on. So there's more to come. I've got a few people lined up over the next few weeks. So there's more Daily Jaces Live to come. If you've got a story to tell and you want to jump on for half an hour, 45 minutes, I'm happy to have a chat. Just reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find, LinkedIn, Facebook. So just reach out. We can have a yarn, and we can put it on the show and see what magic happens. So that's all from me for now. Hopefully catch up soon. I'll be posting as I regularly do, but that's all from me for now. Peace out, everyone.